Today we're working on the E36 Compact, and although it doesn't look it, it's actually a much loved car. Every time we drive this we really have some fun, and we're giving it a major upgrade. Today we're putting on some HSD Dualtech Coilovers to improve the handling. Now, we've done a few things on this project along the way, perhaps not quite as much as we'd have hoped to have done so far. We've fitted some motorsport wheels, the same style as on the E36 M3. We know that they're reps, but they're actually really good ones. And we've got them fitted with some top-notch rubber Pilot Sport 4s, which has actually transformed the grip level of this car on the road. In changing the coilovers, we're now hoping to take advantage of that with better handling. The observant amongst you'll notice the car already sits quite low, and that's because it's on some cheap eBay coilovers that were fitted, I think, best part of 10 years ago. They've actually been very comfortable for coilovers in this car, but the damping has definitely been on the way out, because it did feel quite floaty as you were going down rough country roads. And it's opportune that we're doing this now, because it was an MOT failure, partly on spring corrosion at the front, but one of the springs at the back had actually broken, and we swapped one of the HSD springs onto it just to get through that part of the MOT. We've gone back to HSD because we were very happy with the quality of previous ones that we've had. This time though, we've gone for the Dualtech and the softer option springs, because the ride quality in this car has been good and we don't want to lose that. We did have a little bit of a concern because we did fit monopros into our E30 project. We found that the handling and tracking is really good, but it is a bit of a bone shaker. Hopefully we've made a wise selection there, and we will let you know in this video just how they feel when we drive the car. So let's have a quick look and see what we've actually got. So we've got two front struts, two rear shock absorbers, and we have got two springs, but one of the springs is already on the car. The quality is really good, just like the previous set that we got. And to a great extent, they look very, very similar, because in an E36, and if you remember in our E30, it's got E36 knuckles, they are pretty much the same shocks, apart from the top mounts. And in the rear of an E30 is the same as a Z3, and the compact that we've got has the same kind of suspension in the rear with separate springs. So we'll start with the rears, and hopefully they'll go on as easy as they did on the E30. Usually with this kind of a job, it's taking the old stuff off that causes you all the problems.
Done.
So there's the new spring we've already put on. Obviously we'll have to take it off. What we'll do is we'll do this side in its entirety, and then we'll show you in detail on the other side as we're starting with the original spring in. And with a little bit of YouTube magic, all done. And it wasn't too bad. So let's get on to the other side and I'll show you exactly how it goes together. Changing the rear one is very easy. You've got the damper unit and you've got the spring. First thing you need to do is undo the bottom bolt of the damper unit, which allows this arm to drop down slightly. If your ARBs are tight, you might need to just undo the anti-roll bar, but usually you don't need to. You can usually just bounce this down enough so you can get the spring out. Once you've got that out, there's two nuts on the inside of the cabin that hold this in. Take them out, remove that, and you're putting it all back together again. So we start by undoing this bolt here, which is an 18, and as it's probably been done up for quite a long while to quite a high torque, it's probably going to be stiff. So you might need a breaker bar on your side. God, I love breaker bars. So next we just need to loosen this off and we'll finagle the spring out. go. And there are 2 rubber pads. That one's been cut, so I'm going to put a new one in. The rear top mount lives behind here, behind this trim, and simply you have to pull it out and you should be able to access it by folding it this way. And the best place to start is around here, and just be careful not to break it. So these are 213s. Don't forget, once you've undone these, that'll just drop through, so you might pay to have someone to actually catch it.
Okay.
It's going to fall out in a minute.
Okay.
Don't worry, it's not going to be that heavy. Ready? It's coming out.
I got it.
The spring that we took off is actually exactly the same type as the new ones that are going on, and we were happy with the ride height. The ride height at the rear is actually set by the actual spring perch. So as we're happy with the ride height and the springs are the same size, we're going to set the new ones to the same height as the old ones. Now regarding the strut, the damper, these are far more sophisticated than the ones that came off. However, this adjustment is only so that you can match it to the height that you've set the springs, not so that you can adjust the height of the car with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to set those to the same as we had. We're going to set this to the same length as this damper, because it was sitting perfectly and restraining the spring correctly. In fact, if you set this too long, you can end up where the spring isn't actually properly retained, and if you got full droop on your suspension, the spring could actually pop out. So having measured this, and I already knew what it was, we're going to set the spring perch to 40mm. That's between the face that sits onto the pad and where the spring actually sits onto it. We'll measure the length of the strut, but we must remember it's going to be at full extension, and you can see they're actually quite knackered. It should spring out on its own. Now it's 532mm from that face to the top of the hole, which is what we're going to set this one to. And as you can see, I could just about move that and it springs out on its own. Whereas this one, absolutely nothing. There's no compression whatsoever, and yes, there is rebound, but it should actually be pushing out itself. Coilovers are absolutely famous for seizing, so before you put them together and before you put them on, get lots of copper grease on all of the threads. So I'm going to strip these down, spray them with some copper grease, put them back together. Right, oh, spot on. Need to tighten the lock. So I'm going to set this to 40mm, and obviously when I've tightened it, it might change a bit. So first of all, you just get it as close as you can, then start tightening it up and check it. You might have to do it a couple of times. Okay, that couldn't be better. Just have to find the right holes for these. To get the bottom bolt in on here, you're best advised to use a jack to lift up the hub, and you need to have quite fine control to get it in the right position. The bottom of these dampers, the actual bushing where it goes through, is eccentric. What you need to do is make it so that the body of the damper is as far back and as far inboard where you've positioned this, because they are sided. And now I need to lift the hub until I can line up this and get it started. And these top ones torque up to 15 Newton meters. And the damper is adjustable, and it's anti-clockwise for the softest setting, which is what I'm going to set them to initially. We'll see how it rides, and we can always up them at a later date. And don't forget to be careful putting the trim back, because you don't want any strange creaks. And this one torques up to 100 Newton meters. 2 grunts, 1 groan. Well, that's gone really well, and they look fantastic. I can't wait to feel them out on the road. So I'm going to get the wheels back on now so we can get the back of the car down, and then we can get on with the struts at the front, which may be a little bit more complicated. To prevent wearing these bushes out prematurely, you need to torque these up with the weight of the car actually onto the tyres. So although I've tightened them before, I'm now going to slacken them back off. And then torque them again. And it's 100 Newton meters. There we go. So although it's a bit more complicated, the front strut, it is similar, the same but different. Basically, there are 3 bolts that hold the bottom of the strut to the knuckle. And there are 3 nuts that hold the top of the strut into the arch. There are brake line that you'll need to prise out, and probably some wires for things like wear sensors and ABS and such like. So there isn't a lot to it. Undo the 3 bottom ones, make sure the wires are not in the way, undo the 3 top ones, take it out, put a new one in. Let's see if it goes like that. It's always a pleasure to take really crusty looking parts off your car, and yes, you can see that these springs are really rusty. Worse than the back ones actually, and if you remember, one of the back ones had already snapped. There's 2 bolts down here, and unusually these have got Allen heads on this one. Frequently you'll find the normal hexes, but at some point it's been changed. And then there's a bolt that goes through here, and that's just a standard sort of shouldered bolt. So I'm going to undo these 2 and undo that. Now this will probably take heat, determination and a bad attitude, but I'm sure we'll get them out. You may be tempted to really crank the heat up here. However, please remember there's lots of rubber bushings, wires, brake hoses, and if you catch them with a nice hot gun, it will definitely not make your day. So it's not interested in moving even with the big hammer. So what I'm going to do is turn the steering again. I'll heat it up from the other side and put the impact on the other side of this to try and get it turning in the hole. Then once I've got it turning, it'll come out. Looks like it's coming out. There we go, that'll come out. Right, let's get to the top. It's great to see the new besides the old, isn't it? But a couple of points to note here. This is a strut that was probably designed really just for a straight E36. However, in the compact, it doesn't use this for the drop links on the anti-roll bars. The compact uses an E30 style drop link that actually goes straight to the control arm. But what that means is we can dispense with this bit off this new one, cut some weight down. The other thing to note is that these front struts are handed. So there's one for the driver's side, one for the passenger side. It's the top mounts and it's this bit that make the difference, because this section is exactly the same. And just to confirm it to myself, I can see that that would only be like that. So it's definitely the same side that this comes off, because if it was there, it's just not in the right place. You couldn't put it to, yeah, so it's definitely right. I checked the top mount as well. With this top mount, it doesn't matter which way around it goes, but as we have actually got camber adjustment on this, we need to make sure that it's going across the car the right way. Now, these studs are slightly offset, and what you want to end up with is where this slot is literally at 90 degrees to the front of the car. So we just need to check that we have got the right top plate on the right side. The other thing worth mentioning is about corrosion. And as you can see, it can be an issue with coilovers. HSD's warranty does say that you need to use copper ease on all the threaded parts when you're putting it together, or their anti-corrosion warranty won't apply. Now, they are actually electroplated, but even though they've got a really good coating on as well, once we've copper eased it and put it together, we're going to put a wax spray over all of the rest of the parts to give it its best chance of a long life. Now, you can get special covers to go over parts of them, and we have used them on one of our other projects. Look back at the E30. We may get them for this in the future. The height at the front of the car is actually governed by how far in this is threaded, not by the spring. What we're going to do, we were happy with the ride height of the car, so we're going to measure from the top mount edge to this hole in the middle here, which actually goes onto a stud on the knuckle. There's a knob there that it fits onto. We're going to measure that, and then we're going to set this coilover to exactly the same length and tighten it all up. So we're going to be looking for 552 millimeters to the top of that hole that goes onto that stud. With these coilovers, you go for 0 preload. What that means is that the spring is retained but not actually under any pressure until it's actually in the car. And this is what you want really on a road car and on a sort of track day car. You don't want preload because it's taking out your travel. It's worth mentioning as well that these are the 7 kilo rated springs, and we have 7 kilo rated at the rear as well, which I think are the softest option that you can get for this particular set of coilovers. So hopefully we'll get a nice plush ride. Now I'm happy with that, let's lock it off. So what you need to do is make sure you've got your special spanners for your coilovers the right way around, and this will take a few attempts to get them tight. Final thing that you would do is you would just tighten that a little bit with a punch, just a few taps, just to make sure it is really solid. Oh, so I've gone in a bit too far, we need to pull it back out a little bit. It looks like that is exactly the right measurement at 552. From there, from the top plate. I'll tighten it and then I'll measure it again. Looks good. And just the last bit of tightening with a punch. And before we can put them on the car, the other thing that we need to do is adjust the camber. On an E36, once this is on, you can't get at all the screws. I think you can on an E30. And we're going to go for the maximum negative camber. We did that on the previous car that we put these on, and it worked out really well, and it's a good starting point. Also, it looks cool and the car should corner better. Now you might have to rearrange the screws in the holes to actually get it to the maximum position. $13 torque down to 25 Newton meters. Now I'll do the two lower ones into the knuckle, and these do to 100 Newton meters with a 10mm Allen. And the other one. And finally, this top bolt, you do that to 107 Newton meters. Don't forget to put something onto the other side of it. You have to make sure you securely cable tie the hose and the two wires to the bottom of the strut.
Well, we've used this car on its new suspension for 3 or 4 weeks now, and as you can see, it drives really well. We've been using it for a bit of spirited driving and as a daily driver. The suspension settled down really quickly and it looks like a purposeful driver's car. We haven't put it so low that it actually looks silly. Bear in mind, we set the suspension to perhaps the highest part of its range that it goes. It could be set a lot lower than it is. And more important than how it looks, it rides and handles beautifully. True, we've got the damping set at the softest setting. We were really concerned that it might feel harsh. The HSD monopros that we've put on the E30 do make the car feel very, very stiff and very, very jolty on country roads, whereas this feels still reasonably plush, and it's ideal for blasting down those jolty B roads that we all like so much. So I'm pleased to report that these HSD Dualtechs with 7k springs back and front, set on soft settings, ride really well for a daily driver car. Be interesting to see now how they stand up over time. If this video's been helpful or enjoyable for you, give us a big thumbs up. Why not subscribe, because we've got some epic plans arranged for this car. Thanks for watching!